Welcome back, everyone, to the beginning of season 4 of Inspector Toolbelt Talk. Can you believe, Beyond? It's been 4 seasons. Well, it's the
Yeah,
beginning of.
yeah, crazy man. 2024, 4 seasons. I don't know. When we started this thing, we were kind of like, well, not sure what we're doing here, but I don't know. I'm not sure if we really know any better what we're doing, but we're still going. So here you go.
Oh man, but it's been crazy. We usually take the end of December and the beginning of January off, just because it's the time of year, and everybody's out doing things, and not listening to podcasts necessarily. But I was looking over our old episodes. We had some crazy, wild stuff, especially the one with Nick Gramico and Nathan Thornberry.
Yeah.
Wild year. And now we both have beards, so I feel like that means something. I'm not sure why, but yours is better than mine. I'm jealous. But
we'll see what the new year holds. It's off to an interesting start.
yep, it holds lots more facial hair for us here at ITB. I
Yeah.
think most of our male compatriots, fellow workers, whatever we're calling them, have facial hair now, and possibly a percentage of our female workers. I'm not sure.
No comment on that one.
But man, we didn't even do the Q3 market or Q4 market outlook last year, because last year was a dumpster fire for the home inspection industry, for most of it anyways.
Yeah.
So we didn't even do Q4.
I don't even think you would have gotten many guys listening because they were just kind of fed up by then. And I don't know if there was anything new to report on, to be honest.
Well, a guy emailed me like maybe a week or two ago, and he had just finished up season 3, and he said, kudos to you guys, you nailed it on the head of where we were going to be by the end of 2023. And I'm like, it didn't take a super genius to figure that stuff out. I'm proud that we were pretty
But we'll take
accurate.
it.
We'll take it, but by the end of the year, I'm like, I'm not doing a Q4 market outlook, because basically the outlook is, hey guys, we're heading into one of the worst years in home inspection market history, into the slow season. Enjoy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
No.
it really was kind of tough. And looking at the train wreck that represents the industry right now. I mean, look, some people will say, "Oh, you're being overly negative or whatever." I'm still banging out whatever. And maybe there's some guys
Cool.
who still, have decent business. But if we're looking at the market as a whole with the numbers for home inspectors, I mean, I think did we speak on this before, like the license renewals state by state for home inspectors?
Yeah. So before we mention that, I do want to
Okay.
say that while last year was a nosedive for the market, we're actually coming out of it, and we're going to talk about a few points of why we are still very optimistic for 2024.
Hmm.
But going back, if you're listening to this, then very likely you survived that dumpster fire of a year.
Yeah.
But what Beyond just mentioned were the statistics. So there's some that, I mean, you can't say this is how much of the market, of the home inspectors in the market left, because you have states like Colorado, they don't have licensing, or California. Some states, they give you everybody who has a license, and some will only give you, renewal periods. So from our estimates, depending on where you are, some areas lost 30 to 40% of licensed home inspectors.
Mm-hmm.
I want to let that sink in. If you sat in a room with 10 guys, 3 or 4 of them are gone now. Just one area of New Jersey, they lost a little over 30%. There was a couple of areas that we were taking, and again, it depends on, are you comparing last year to this year, or 2023 to 2022 rather, and how you look at the numbers. But the churn rate was low. The new home inspectors entering and gaining new licenses was at an all-time low too. So we work with home inspection schools out there, and they were telling us their numbers. We're not going to reveal them here, obviously. And we were looking at what's called the churn rate. It was abysmal. We lost a lot of home inspectors, and a couple of other industry vendors shared their numbers to a certain extent with us, and they said the same thing. Air quotes around forced retirement is what a lot of home inspectors went through last year. So definitely wild. It was a rough year for a lot of us.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, for sure. And I'm glad you put that positive sort of precursor in there. It's not all downhill. It looks like looks like the clouds may be starting to part ways a little, at least. But exactly what that means for our listeners and for the market as a whole, because last year was interesting. It wasn't just the overall economy, right? Towards the end there, we had the whole, you know, swing around with the real estate market itself, with the lawsuit and lawsuits being filed against NAR, what that means for the future of the real estate industry. There's kind of a lot of stuff going on, so we'll have to see, how it all plays out. Obviously, we've given some of our thoughts on that, but as far as the home inspection market itself, like you offered a bit of positivity, but I'd be interested to see what your thoughts on where we're headed here.
So last year in the Q2 and the Q3 market outlook for 2023, we actually said around springtime of this year, we'd come out of the nosedive. I actually see signs of that happening. We'll start really pulling up by spring, but I can see signs of that happening now, because the inaffordability of the market isn't sustainable. And just if you want to look up some of what we're going to talk about, Forbes was one of our big resources. Bankrate had an interesting article actually on the overall real estate market outlook for 2024. We did, I personally did anyway, still looked at the NAR website. Man, that website is like propaganda. It's just like, hey, here's some facts that aren't true, and not saying that they aren't true, but here's our wild, crazy spin on, what's actually happening. But either way, I still want to take it into account. Zillow and a couple of other resources that we went to. And then anecdotally, one of my favorite words, what's happening out in the real world with inspectors on the ground. So here's a couple of positives that I think that are happening in the market right now. So I don't know if you saw Beyond, but the feds are preparing for what they like to call a soft landing. And one of the ways that they do a soft landing is to, with bated breath, lower interest rates. And we're not talking like huge, we're not going to go down to 3% again, or 2.9. I've seen people with 2.9% interest rates. But some predict that we might be down to 6% by the end of the year. So we talked about before that there is a mindset that comes about where people have to get used to a higher interest rate. And then anything below that seems good, even though it may be higher than what they're used to from years past.
Right.
Personally, I think that's what the feds are really trying to do, because the housing crisis is really pushing politicians. Their constituents are like, dude, we need someplace to live. Houses are literally twice as much almost as what they used to be just 5 years ago. We need to do something. I think personally that's probably behind it. So that's the first bit of good news. What are your thoughts on the interest rates going down there, Beyond?
Yeah, it does seem like they keep saying that they think they've achieved what they needed to achieve. So we'll probably see some easing. I agree with your sentiment completely, but yeah, I don't know. I think if that thing ever dips below 6% again, you're going to see a pretty interesting thing. But you see, they have to be careful too, because if those interest rates drop too quickly, your market comes right back on fire. Your economy fires up too strongly again. And then we end up with the same issues we've had for most of this year, and they'd have to correct again. So yeah, they got to ease up on it a little bit. But yeah, it looks like the sort of the excessive hikes at every sort of quarter, it looks like those hopefully are behind us, or at least very much slower than what they've been.
Yeah, most economists, I say most, there's always going to be naysayers, but the vast majority agree that the real estate market hit its all-time low. And they're not saying that this is going to be a banner year, but it is not going to be as bad. It's our route upward. So there's a couple of other good things going for us. Ironically, losing, depending on our market, and again, there's guys out there saying, oh man, best year ever. I got to caveat this again, though. I know and can see data for some of these companies, and they'll be like, "Oh man, we had the most amazing year." And I'm looking at their data. I'm like, "Oh, okay, we're obviously not going to reveal that data." So also understand that two things happen. People's perception of a really good year is they do 5 inspections that month. Maybe they're a part-timer, or maybe they were able to squeak by and they call that a banner year. Their perception of what is an amazing year might be different than ours. Also, too, some guys just don't like to show, hey, it was a really hard year. I kind of feel like a failure, but that's why they're on Facebook at all hours of the day bragging about how awesome they are instead of in an attic.
Right.
But in reality, though, there are some markets where, I mean, some markets down in Texas and a couple of other areas slamming. They really don't care what's happening with the overall market. So caveat it with that. But because most of the market has lost so many home inspectors, so there's areas of the Northeast where they lost almost exactly a third of all home inspectors. Now, if we think of those are licenses. So if we think about how many active home inspectors there actually are out of the, 66 out of 100 that are left, probably a third of those are relatively inactive and just kind of do it here or there and don't care if their license is renewed because they're just doing it part-time.
Right.
So there's only a small pool of us left doing the actual inspections. And maybe 2020, 2021, we were worried because that one older guy that had our market cinched down was unbreakable. Maybe now he was pushed into retirement, or maybe he lost some of the footing because as many home inspectors as we lost, the real estate world has actually lost more agents. A lot of agents were forced into retirement, leaving the industry, and there was a number, and I couldn't verify it, so I'm not going to say it on air unless I can verify it. But if it's true, a larger portion of the agents than I realized went out of business as well.
Wow.
So let their licenses go. So there is a market gap for us. So even if we turn up just a little bit in the market, there is going to be opportunity for all of us that stuck around. And we talked about that last year. This is the time that the market is going to start to go up. There's less inspectors entering the market. And then once the market, so let's say the market does run really high this year, which I don't think it will. How long does it take a home inspector to go get their training, get their license, learn how to do home inspections, network, get all their tools, get their legs under them? It's a process, a year or two sometimes. So no matter what, we're going to be ahead of everybody else because there's no home inspectors coming on, comparatively speaking, that is. And a lot of the market's gone. So that's going to be an advantage for us that stuck around. It's also going to be good for ancillary inspections because maybe we had a hard time breaking into the septic market. A lot of septic companies will be like, well, we just don't do as many of those anymore. And they move on to whatever's big because they're not tied to the real estate industry. That can open that market for us. Chimney sweeps, level 2 chimney inspections, rather. All sorts of things are going to open up for us as this market starts to unfold over the next few months. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, that would be an interesting ancillary, offering chimney sweeps, be a little dirty, but
yeah, I think I've talked about it on other podcasts. I think it's a great opportunity. The level 2 chimney inspections. A lot of people argue with me, but that's fine. But just the overall market opportunity. Half the farmers are gone. Now's the time to buy up land, and we might not see the crops we want at first, but at least we'll have the land when the market turns around.
Yeah, no, and I think that sort of coincides even with what we're seeing. You referred to data on our platform. Obviously, we're not wanting to share, individual inspector numbers or anything, but a trend that we are seeing is there are some newer providers, newer inspectors. When I'm saying they're newer, they've come into the inspection world within the last 2 or 3 years or so. They have continued to see sort of a slow but continuous upward trajectory in their work that they're doing, the number of inspections that they're doing. So like Ian was saying, maybe you've come in and you've had some other inspectors drop out of your market. Well, if you're still around, you've been able to capitalize on it and will continue to. So yeah, I agree with you 100% there. That sounds more or less what I was thinking. The other you probably got it in your list there, but the other topic I think that drives things together is home prices.
Yeah.
And inventory.
Yeah.
Because I think some folks are thinking that we're going to see this big drop in prices, but I don't know. It doesn't look like that's really going to be happening.
No, I totally agree with you there. The demand is still greater than the inventory, and that's economics 101.
Yeah.
So no matter what, there's still a buildup of buyers from the past several years. So we're not dealing with this year's buyers. You're dealing with this year's buyers plus buyers from 2021 through 2023.
Mm-hmm.
Because better than half of them did not get a house in those years.
Mm-hmm.
So that is going to be one of the things that will slow down our upward trajectory. The plane didn't crash, but it's not pulling up as fast as we might want. It's not going to be like, wow, this is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Inventory is still at historic lows, and it hit one of the biggest lows ever per capita in December. Which it's Christmas time, so they always expect it to go down a little bit more. And especially in the Northeast, people don't like to move as much in the cold weather. So that's always expected, but it was even more than they expected. Mortgage applications and all those things all went down. So that's going to be a little bit of a wrench in the works, so to speak, is inventory. And if inventory stays low, prices are going to stay high. But prices are starting on a downward trend, or at least not skyrocketing as fast as they were before. The predictions, Zillow was one of the ones that predicted that home prices would go down.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. I guess it'll depend on market too, to see who goes up and who goes down, depending, or how far, we should say. But it is interesting tying that back to interest rates, because there's two things that'll drive the pricing of houses. When you talk about inventory, obviously, the more houses that are built. But even if everybody's building as fast as they can, some of the stats out there, I saw somebody saying, even if they met 30% to half of the current, pace, if they just about doubled it, that extra inventory would just be absorbed by the market without really changing stats all that much. But with interest rates, if interest rates continue to keep coming down, there's people who have locked in and not selling because they have such a good current interest rate, where that gap will start to close, and they'll be more confident to make their next jump to their next property, where it's not going to cost them an arm and a leg. So that releases more inventory onto the market. So I guess as we see those two things align, construction continues on the current trend and maybe steps up a little bit, and we see the interest rates coming down, we'll see those transactions going up, because that's the metric we watch the closest, I guess, as home inspectors. Is you want to see how many transactions, whether home price is going up, down, interest rates, whatever. We want to focus on what's going to cause more transactions, because that's where home inspectors obviously move in and are able to generate their business from. But one of the stats I saw was saying we should see on 2023, we should expect about a 12 to 15% increase overall in the year on real estate transactions. I don't know if that aligns with what you saw, but
you're talking about 2024, you mean?
Yeah, 2024. Sorry. Yeah, 2024. So kind of a tepid, it'll go up. And for some it's a relief, because it's not going to be crashing down, but we'll see some relief throughout the year, I guess.
So here's my opinion on that, and I saw basically the same numbers. So if we get a 15% increase in transactions, which would mean hypothetically a 15% increase in inventory. Either way, I also don't look at just how many transactions, but I look at time on market. If you have lower time on market, you can have 1,000 transactions, but only 200 of them actually get a home inspection.
Okay.
So I look at number of transactions plus time on market to make a little makeshift Jimmy rigged, algorithm in my head.
That makes sense.
Yeah, but if we have a market right now that in 2023 got rid of a third of home inspectors approximately. So if we kept on the same track as 2023, we'd have a market that could sustain that 2/3 that are left, hypothetically. Limp it along. So a 15% increase is actually good in my opinion, because that means the market can actually support more home inspectors, but the home inspectors that are there will actually absorb it. It'll also increase the time on market for homes and reduce the chances of people skipping an inspection. So that 15%, while it might seem modest to most, with what happened in 2023, I mean that's a great opportunity for new guys, like you were saying earlier. Guys that have been around for 2-3 years, maybe trying to make their break into a market. Now there's a 15% increase and 1/3 less inspectors. That to me, that's a good sign. I think that'll be good for the market overall.
Yeah, it would be interesting to know with the so many inspectors not renewing licenses. That's the only metric we have to go on there. But we're saying if 30% or so lost, or not lost, got out of the market. It would be interesting to know as far as like producers, were they higher producers, mid-market producers, lower end producers? But I guess as things pick up, we'll get more of an insight into that dynamic too, as things pick up corresponding to however the market moves, But I'm just feel good that we're not at a point where we're like, hey guys, man, we're heading down and just hang in there. It's actually like a little glimmer of hope. If you've survived till now, you're gonna likely be okay, obviously as competition re-enters, but I don't think we're at that point yet where guys who pulled out are going to be like, okay, it's ready to jump back in again, because that small amount of growth, it isn't going to be enough for them to be excited about. So if you're in right now and being able to survive so far, you'll probably do okay through 2024.
Yeah, and I'm relatively a people person. I know a lot of people in this industry, and it's kind of a mixed bag of everybody that left. Like I hear some inspectors say, "Oh, well, it was just a low end guys." I know some guys that had multi-inspector firms that just went out of business, and they were cranking. Just recently, there was another 5-inspector firm that I knew doing great, fantastic company. It went right back down to the owner, and he's struggling on his own. Then I know the guys that are new, they're like, oh, I couldn't make it work after my first year, didn't get anything, and then they left. So it's kind of
interesting,
both ends of the spectrum and everything in the middle.
Yeah.
So we didn't just lose the quote unquote lower end of the market of home inspectors. We lost a good swath of them. Guys who have been doing it for 20, 30 years. Guys that I've known have been doing it since I started or before. Cut back. Some very large inspection firms, some of the largest in the country, laying people off. So it's not, we're losing good competition. And if we're still here, losing good competition is good for us who are left, which is sad to say, but it's true.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a valuable insight, because I was just thinking a multi-inspector, you may think of a big outfit. Oh, you got some insulation against market downturn and stuff, but I mean, your operating expenses as a multi-inspector is massive, So if you got even 5 guys, 5 trucks, you got some space that you're leasing to, act as a base or whatever, all those expenses continue no matter what, And if you've laid those guys off too, it does, So yeah, those guys were under pressure. They could find themselves under pressure really, really quick in a situation like that.
Yeah, and we're still humans, so it's not like everybody is just waiting on the sidelines to get back into the market. They've gone off and done other things. They've gotten other jobs, started other businesses, and there's missed opportunity costs for big companies that lay a guy off. So like you said, you have 5 guys, 5 trucks, and you have a pool of 200 agents that love that one guy. Maybe everybody else has 400 agents that love the other ones. So you lay off the guy where 200 agents love that one guy. So now you need to sell the truck, you have a loss, and if things pick up even a little bit, you're probably going to lose those 200 agents that love the guy that you laid off. And they're going to need somewhere else to go. So it's just, unfortunately, just how the market is. It's opportunity, missed opportunity cost, and all those things. But There was something interesting that I've been following, the Silver Tsunami. Have you read about that?
No, not at all.
So they're waiting for baby boomers to start selling.
Okay.
And they are thinking, and I don't know how much I agree yet, they're thinking that this year is going to be the year that baby boomers actually sell. So baby boomers are, so the oldest end of it is reaching 75. But interestingly, they're one of the generations that have held on to living on their own in their own home the longest. Just that generation, it's their home.
Mm-hmm.
It meant a lot, and they're not going to live with family as much. So they're thinking, a lot of economists, and I was reading an article on Zillow about this as well, is that the Silver Tsunami, they were calling it the Silver Wave, and now they're calling it the Silver Tsunami. They're sitting on one of the largest stocks of real estate inventory in history. It's nuts. But they're thinking that they're going to sell this year because everybody else is talking about what we're talking about. 2024 is going to start swinging up. Inventory is going to go up. Prices are going to finally stabilize.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 2025, the prices are going to go down. Interest rates and yada, yada, yada. So, if you're a baby boomer, you're sitting there, you're thinking, maybe you're well off and you have a financial advisor. Whatever, they're going to tell you the same thing, or your cousin who's an accountant, whatever, they're going to say, hey, listen, if you want to get top dollar for your house, now's the time to sell. Your house that you bought in 1980 for $17,000 is now worth $490.
Mm-hmm.
That can get you a long time in a retirement community.
Mm-hmm.
If you wait too long, you're going to go, you can imagine the conversation.
Yeah.
So they're thinking the Silver Tsunami is going to happen this year. So if that happens, that will change every prediction.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's going to happen because
Mm-hmm.
I think boomers are in their house, not thinking about the financial aspect, but thinking about, this is where I am. This is my home. I think it's more of an emotional attachment because otherwise they would have sold last year.
Right.
But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, and that is an interesting concept because they still need somewhere to go, right? It's a property that if I know here in Florida being a very popular retirement area for folks, inventory is not super great even for retirement properties around in the area. They're knocking down more woods than you can keep up with, building new retirement homes and properties. But those probably are going to be coming online in the next 2 to 3 years. So it will be interesting. I think if you get a matchup of inventory available for the baby boomers to go to, yeah, absolutely. You'll probably see that transition and move. Now, that's just based on my opinion. I don't know what the real stats are for the retirement property inventory, if it differs from general inventory. But yeah, selling your house, okay, I wouldn't even want to think of the capital gains you're going to pay on a place that you bought in 1980 and you're selling now. That's a good chunk. But either way, you'll still walk away with a good bundle of cash, right, to be able to put down on your next place. So yeah, solid.
Well, yeah, and so baby boomers are also the generation that didn't have as much retirement or pension as a lot of other generations before them, which is, well, I say a lot of other generations. We're not going to get into a history lesson, but they were not as prepared for retirement as experts had hoped. So a lot of them, one of the last things that they have that's of value is their home and their land. So, what you brought up is a very good point, and one of the reasons I think that it's not going to be a silver tsunami, maybe a silver wave, a slight one later this year, is because some of them are they're in still really good health, one of the healthiest older generations ever. Like, they have the best health care. They're going to be around for a lot longer, they say. So if you're 70 years old, puttering around your own house feeling good, you're not thinking, let me move into a retirement community and do nothing all day.
Yeah.
Or play bridge.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
I just think it's more emotional than it's more societal than it is about money.
Yeah. No, it's true. I mean, a
So
lot of my neighbors, there are many along my street who are over 70, some even over 80, and they have what I consider a fairly large property for someone who's older, but they've already been here for maybe, since their retirement. They moved soon after their retirement, so they've been here for 10, 15 years already. And yeah, they're not looking to move, but yeah, it will be interesting because I guess with the rise in property prices, it seems like in areas like the Northeast, California, that the value of properties, it looks like, is set to still rise slightly through this year. So they may be looking to, like you say, to time it where you can put those homes on the market. And I don't know if you can, because what interesting thing is over here, and I don't know, this is just more anecdotal than really having, I used that word.
yeah, it's a good word, right?
Than really have any substance on the topic. But what we did notice is obviously in this area during the pandemic, it was just, tons of people, the whole work from home, work remote, era. It was a flood of people coming down to live here. But since and companies are changing their remote worker policies, there's been a lot, like a sizable amount of people that have left again to go back, quote unquote, home. So it's interesting. There is some movement, but we'll see. It looks like there's all the stats are pointing in the direction of more movement coming, but still no windfalls. It doesn't look like everything's aligned for that to happen yet.
Yeah, I do think the Silver Tsunami is still important to take into account because, I mean, you think about every other generation and even Wall Street, how much of a percentage of the market they own, which will lead me to my next point. It's not as much as the boomers. They have so much of the inventory. If they actually let go of it, that would be a game changer. It wouldn't matter what the interest rates are. They could be 15% interest rates, and you have all these houses on the market. People are going to buy them up, and I don't think it would have a huge effect on pricing. But if you're a savvy boomer, you're thinking right now, this might be the last year where I'm going to get top dollar. It's not going to go up. My house almost doubled in value since just the past 8 years. It's not going to happen, and it's going to level off or die down.
Yeah.
But I bring up Wall Street as one of my next points because it was an interesting angle that they're calling the new first-time home for families a house rental, a single-family home rental. That's not happened before a lot in the past. And I say Wall Street because a lot of these investors, whether they're part of Wall Street or not, they bought up a lot of housing inventory over the past 4 years. And so what they need to do with it to make money logistically is rent out the houses. I mean, even Nick Romico, he talked about that. He built 4 houses and just rented them out. It's good money sense. So people are starting to rent more single family homes than they really ever have before in this capacity. So I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like that's going to stifle the market or maybe motivate people because they're going to be paying, $5,000 a month in certain markets for a single family home and be like, dude, I don't care how much a house costs. I'm going to go buy one.
Right. Exactly. Now that is interesting because I thought of that earlier, but didn't know how it tied in because that trend we are even seeing around where we live is properties will be for sale. We'll notice they'll stay for sale for longer than what they were. And then they'll sell and you'll see, oh, look, for sale sign's gone, or they have their, sale pending sign. And the very next sign to go up is a for rent sign. So it kind of, even locally, I've seen that on like enough to notice the trend. So that is an interesting point you made there.
Well, two, and this is just an assumption on my part. I was talking with a friend whose father passed away. He was a very good friend of mine. And his house, the municipality, is forcing them to have somebody occupy it. And they're like, we don't care who. We cannot have any more vacant homes in our municipality. And apparently it's going on in quite wide swaths because people would buy these single family homes. they're like, I don't know what's going on, but I know this house is going to be worth 50% more in a couple of
They'll
years
just sit
here.
on it.
And they just sat on it. So now these municipalities are kind of like, okay, we can't have empty neighborhoods. That's going to devalue our entire neighborhood if half the houses are unoccupied. So they've started renting these single family homes more. So it's a really weird dynamic of houses that they just knew were going to be worth more. Now they're just renting them out. And in some cases, just renting them out so that the municipality doesn't, evict them basically or take away their house.
Yeah.
Super weird out there. All of this stemmed basically from the pandemic mostly.
Yeah. No, that's pretty wild, pretty interesting. So, yeah, I don't know. Overall, like I was trying to think of, because the guys always love the buzzwords marketing strategy. What can it do? But I don't know. Is there really? I mean, other than seeing what agents are left in town and focusing on them, I don't know. I don't know. What would you recommend?
So we did a podcast sometime, I think early December, with Mike Ortiz. It's going to be very important to do direct-to-consumer marketing, and more important than it has been in the past, and especially preparing for what's going to happen with NAR still, because that's still going on. Then also think about doing rental inspections. So if single-family homes are being rented in your area, try offering that as a service, because real estate agents are still often involved. And it depends on the market. Sometimes the agent gets the first month's rent as long as they vet the renters and there's insurance and stuff involved. Think about doing inspections for that, because that's still, it's almost pretty much a full inspection, almost. Not quite sometimes. Depends on the municipality. Sometimes they have different requirements. And then go for new agents right now. Because the new agents, if we're a new inspector, we're like, yes, market opportunity, finally. You know what the new agents are saying? Yes, new market opportunity, finally. Get on with them and ride that train up. So those are going to be my 3 recommendations for this year so far. Direct-to-consumer marketing. Think about rental inspections. And I didn't mention this before, 11th month inspections. Those are getting really hot right now. Phase inspections and 11th month inspections. I know entire companies that are basically, that's their whole business model for the next year. And they're surviving. And then focus on newer agents. We'd love to have the agent that has been around for 20 years. But you know what? The agent that's been around for 20, 30 years is more likely to leave if the market gets a little hard again. And the newer guys are going to be out there. What's that expression? The wolf at the top of the mountain is never as hungry as the wolf climbing. So stick with that wolf that's climbing the mountain. But don't forget direct to consumer, because the thing with NAR could go totally sideways, and all those new agent relationships you made could go nowhere. So don't put all your eggs in one basket. But what's your summary for your predictions for 2024, Beyond?
2024. The bleeding is over. We're going to start being able to claw up, if you're using the expression of a mountain, we're going to be able to claw your way up the mountain a little ways. Probably if you've stepped out of the market, you probably not best timing to step back in yet if you got something else that's solid. But if you've survived, you're gonna see an uptick for 2024, and hopefully things can align by the end, and 2025 can look a bit more like previous years. But I guess that's how I would summarize.
Yep. So I got basically the same thing. The one wild card in my mind is it is an election year here in the U.S. So that does tend to affect the market, sometimes better, sometimes worse, just depending on what's going on. But besides that wild card, I think the nosedive is over. I like how you put it. The bleeding has stopped. Now you still have to heal the wound. But we're coming out of the nosedive, but it's not going to be as fast a trajectory up as it was going down. I think by spring, I think we're going to be doing okay. By mid-spring, I think we're going to be feeling really good about stuff, the inspectors that stuck around. And we might get a little bit of a false sense of, yay, everything's back to normal. Once we get around to September, October, we're really going to see where the market actually is headed, especially with the elections going on. but this year is going to be overall an upward trajectory. The numbers are already going up. So December dropped, and the January numbers in almost the key metrics that we as home inspectors care about, the numbers are already going the direction we want them to go. So upward trajectory, going to be a good year. Again, not a banner year, but we haven't been saying that at all. Anyways, 2025, spring of 2025 is my jam. I think that's going to be okay. We can start to breathe. But yeah, if you stuck around, kudos, because this is what you stuck around for.
Awesome. Well, that would make me happy if I was listening. So, so that's great. But yeah, I appreciate all those insights. And you've been doing this for a while, and you've seen kind of the flow through like, okay, we've never probably had something like this before, but the principles are pretty much the same, right? In the recovery, we'll see it pull out very similarly.
Yeah, and I appreciate your insights. I mean, especially you're a stock market guy. You keep an eye on that. We've also had quite the rally lately with that. Just as a side point, people actually are sitting on more money than they expected. I think it was said in one of the Forbes articles. The cash to buy is actually not the issue. There's a large set of buyers out there with enough cash, at least for down payments, if not to buy cash. It's just a matter of inventory and getting things moving along, which we're heading that direction.
Yeah.
So I appreciate your insights too, and it's always nice having you on to kick off the beginning of season 4. Season 4, man, 4 seasons. This is awesome.
That's quite something. No, well done with keeping the show going, Ian. And here's to a good year for ITB as well. I must say, one thing I will say is, talking about growth, all the way through this, we haven't been able to. The market's been up and down, but we've continued easily steady way up. So it's good. Our user base is growing. More guys are getting into understand what we're all about. So I'm hoping as the market comes back, we'll be able to continue that growth. But for all you ITB users out there, way to go, man. We'll keep on building for you.
Yeah, I do have to put a shameless plug in there too on that note, Beyond, because I was listening to another podcast that said, while all the other softwares out there are receding, we're growing. And I'm like, we're not receding. I'm looking at our numbers. I'm like, we're doing pretty good. Yeah, we're growing. Our team is quite large, and we're coming out with new features every month. We're taking on new users all the time, and we did really, really well with a fantastic user base this past year. I love our users. Some of them have gotten quite close to over time. We've had them on the show even.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah, it's been a good year for us, anyways. But yeah, we still saw it. It didn't. It's a weird market still.
Yeah,
it'll come around and level out for everybody.
Sounds good, man. We should end it off Jim Cramer style. It's gonna be money for everybody.
Okay, we'll end it on that one. Thanks, Ben.